She applied to be a maid at a rich man's house. Unexpectedly, her skirt suddenly split. She blamed the hot weather and hurriedly took off her coat to cover up. Just as she was relieved, the lady of the house hadn't noticed. The wealthy husband walked over to shake her hand, though standing up would expose her torn skirt. Out of politeness, she reluctantly stood up. Only then did the lady notice the tear in her skirt. Though the woman's resume was unremarkable, her gesture of covering her thigh made the lady decide to hire Louisa on the spot. What she didn't know was that Louisa wasn't as conservative as she appeared. The lady demanded she start immediately. The pay was high, and the job was simple, just to make her paralyzed son happy. Louisa was overjoyed, thinking this was a great job, but when she enthusiastically greeted Will responded with a piercing scream. Louisa was startled, but soon Will stopped and sharply pointed out that Louisa's skirt was torn. Only then did Louisa realize his earlier act was fake. Though offended by his rudeness, she decided to stay for the high salary. The next day, however, Will suddenly became seriously ill. Louisa thought he was messing with her again, but she accidentally noticed cuts on Will's wrists. She couldn't understand why someone with such wealth would want to end his life. It wasn't until she overheard Will's parents arguing that she learned the truth. Will planned to undergo euthanasia in 6 months. His mother strongly opposed his decision, which was why she hired a caregiver. She hoped Louisa could help Will change his mind about euthanasia. After learning the truth, Louisa felt a heavy burden. She felt responsible for a man's life. But Louisa couldn't quit easily. Her parents were unemployed. Her older sister had a child out of wedlock and still wanted to go to college. The pressure of supporting a family of 5 fell on her alone. For her sister and the child's future, Louisa had to stay and try to change Will. To lift Will's spirits, Louisa swapped her dull uniform for her brightest clothes when visiting him. She tried to start conversations with Will, but was met with sarcasm. Will told her to stay quiet in his presence. Louisa hadn't expected him to be so difficult. No wonder he'd driven away 4 previous caregivers. But Louisa didn't give up. She kept finding new ways to cheer him up. She put on a fashion show, wearing a different bright outfit each day, trying to amuse Will. But each time, she was met with his disdain, leaving Louisa feeling defeated. Unexpectedly, things soon took a turn. One day, Will's ex-girlfriend visited with her new boyfriend, who was also Will's former friend. They pretended to show concern for Will. Before leaving, the ex-girlfriend shifted the blame to Will. She said she hadn't taken care of him because Will didn't want her to. After they left, Will angrily smashed a photo of them together. Louisa felt a pang of pity for Will. She glued the photo back together, but Will mocked her for it. He told Louisa she was not only unattractive, but also good for nothing. Louisa finally snapped. She said his friends got the treatment they deserved, and she was just trying to do her job. She asked Will not to ruin her life. Will told her to leave immediately. Louisa said she was hired by Will's mother, and he had no right to fire her. She explained she wasn't staying out of concern for him, but because she needed the money. Louisa's bravery earned his respect. After that, Will stopped bullying her, and even became curious about her. From that day on, Will slowly began to accept Louisa. But would Louisa's presence make Will change his mind about euthanasia? To make amends, Will invited Louisa to watch a soccer game. While Louisa was engrossed in the match, he would secretly watch her reactions like a child. From then on, they talked about everything and grew to understand each other better. Soon, winter came. Will fell ill again. Louisa stayed by his side all night. While researching on her laptop, she accidentally discovered Will's past. Back then, he was charming and attractive, with a sculpted physique. He was every girl's dream man. He loved extreme sports, and was a self-made millionaire by his 20s, living what seemed like a perfect life. But a car accident left him paralyzed from the neck down. Learning this, Louisa felt deep sympathy for Will. When Will woke up, seeing he was better, Louisa prepared to leave, but Will asked her to stay. Louisa sang him a folk song. That night, they talked freely. Will was infected by Louisa's optimism and laughed like a child. They were no longer just employer and employee, but close friends. This peace was shattered by news. Louisa learned that Switzerland had approved Will's euthanasia application. She couldn't just watch him end his life, so she confided in her sister. Her sister suggested making a bucket list. and taking Will on trips. Maybe it would change his mind. Reinvigorated, Louisa began planning the perfect itinerary and got permission from Will's parents. Louisa planned the first outing. She lied about never seeing a horse race and asked Will to accompany her. But at the racetrack, Will's wheelchair got stuck in the mud, making him feel humiliated in front of the crowd. Louisa quickly called over some strong men to help. Before the race, Louisa picked a horse to bet on, but Will predicted it would lose because it lacked energy. Louisa trusted her gut and placed a bet. When the race started, all the horses charged forward, except the one she bet on. Louisa had to tear up her betting slip. She had wanted to cheer Will up, but failed. That evening at home, Louisa showed 2 tickets, inviting Will to a Mozart concert. She said she'd never been to such an event, and hoped he'd go with her. Will refused on the surface, but was thrilled inside. Louisa wore a red dress she'd never dared to before. Will suggested she remove her scarf. He believed women should be confident. When she did, his eyes lit up. To him, Louisa was a treasure. Entering the concert hall, they looked like a loving couple. Louisa kindly bit off a forgotten tag on Will's clothes, teasing that she was glad it wasn't in his pants. During the concert, Will's gaze stayed on Louisa, his eyes showing a tenderness he'd never known. Perhaps in that moment, Will didn't realize he had fallen irrevocably in love with her. As they grew closer, Louisa invited Will to her home for her upcoming birthday. She didn't expect him to agree, since he disliked social settings. Louisa's family was delighted by Will's visit. Her father warmly offered a handshake, but Will wasn't offended. He diffused the awkwardness with humor. He was happy inside, because he liked being treated normally. Will easily fit into Louisa's family, but the mood shifted when Louisa's boyfriend showed up. Seeing Louisa wipe Will's mouth bothered him. He mocked Will, knowing Will was paralyzed and couldn't exercise. He suggested a fitness plan anyway, saying it would be good for his muscles. Louisa stopped him. As Louisa blew out her candles, her father thanked her for supporting the family. During gift-giving, the boyfriend gave Louisa a necklace with his name on it. But Louisa's favorite gift was the yellow striped tights Will gave her. She had mentioned them once in passing, and he remembered. Louisa was thrilled and wanted to try them on immediately. Will had a great time that night. Before leaving, he shot back at Louisa's boyfriend, thanking him for the fitness advice. Will added mischievously that Louisa gave excellent bed care. The competitive tension between them was clear. Will clearly had the upper hand. Soon after, Will arranged for Louisa's father to become a supervisor, restoring a castle, easing the family's financial burden, and lightening Louisa's load. He wanted Louisa to live for herself from then on. But what about himself? He still didn't seem to want to live. One day, Louisa saw Will meeting a strange man who asked her to leave. She searched online and found he was a will specialist. She hurriedly told Will's mother. Later, Will attended his ex-girlfriend's wedding. Seeing her in her wedding dress, he struggled to keep his composure. Soon, the ex-girlfriend approached Will. She tried to act natural, but the atmosphere was strained. She had left him after the accident, blaming it on him. But Will was different now. With Louisa by his side, he had become more open to get back at the ex-girlfriend. Louisa sat on Will's lap and asked him to spin her around. People at the wedding were stunned. The two professed their feelings openly, ignoring everyone else. Louisa asked Will to take her away. Not wanting to disappoint her, Will pretended to agree. They raced down a country road. His mother approved of their recklessness because she wanted her son happy. But Will was later hospitalized with a lung infection. A nurse told Louisa that Will screamed in his sleep. Having cared for him for 2 years, the nurse knew how much pain Will hid. Will had been masking his suffering around Louisa. The nurse hoped Will would choose to live. Louisa felt the same. She decided to take Will on a trip, hoping it would show him the world's beauty. With the nurse's help, they flew to Mauritius on a private jet. Louisa took Will to a romantic beach. They basked in the sun together. During a stormy night, Louisa went to Will's room to close the window, but he asked her not to. The moment was too romantic. He begged her to stay. Looking at him, Louisa felt overwhelmed. She kissed him, trying to show him he was worthy of love. Louisa danced under the stars. Will watched her lovingly, wishing the moment would last forever. Louisa sat on his lap, and they kissed deeply. Will knew Louisa was trying to change his mind, so he confessed. This wasn't the life he wanted. He couldn't live without dignity as a paralyzed man. Louisa urged him to give himself a chance and to consider her feelings, but Will refused. He believed Louisa deserved better. He feared she might regret her choice later, but Louisa insisted she wouldn't. Louisa couldn't understand Will. Once he made a decision, nothing could change it. Later, accompanied by her sister, Louisa rushed to Switzerland to see Will one last time. Will asked her to open the window so he could see the world's beauty one final time. Louisa stayed with him until the end. Will left her an inheritance to help her build a freer life with romance and tenderness. He had melted Louisa's heart, and his heart kept beating in her pulse. He had never truly left.